militarily, there is no justification for demanding such sweeping concessions from Ukraine compared to Russia. Russia is not currently winning the war. Ukraine is not exactly winning either, but when you have a situation where militarily it's very equal, then it does not make sense to demand so many more concessions from one side than the other.
We reported in the previous video that Ukrainian assault troops cleared center of Pokrovsk. Now, Ukraine's 7th Air Assault Corps released a video about the fighting in central Pokrovsk, where assault teams are clearing Russian positions. They report 388 Russians killed since early November, with another tank destroyed on the city's southern edge. Russian troops' recent advances in the Zaporizhzhia region under the cover of fog near the Ukrainian stronghold of Hulyapole are now threatening Kiev's grip on the city and potentially the wider region. According to an open-source battlefield map, Russia has deployed multiple regiments and brigades north of Hulyapole as of Saturday, with breakthroughs indicating an attempt to encircle the city on multiple fronts. At present, Russia has occupied over 73% of central Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region, including the nation's largest nuclear power plant in Enerhodar, though the regional capital, Zaporizhzhia, remains firmly under Ukrainian control. Hulyapole is located approximately 87 kilometers, 54 miles, east of Zaporizhzhia. The city was also home to Nestor Makhno, a Ukrainian anarchist revolutionary who led the Revolutionary Insurgent Army of Ukraine after the 1917 Russian Revolution, opposing the White Army and the Bolsheviks before the group's defeat, by the latter in 1921. Vladislav Voloshin, spokesperson for Ukraine's Southern Defense Forces, said on Friday that the city is the largest settlement and a key transport hub for that sector, with logistical routes running north toward Pokrovsk in the Dnipropetrovsk region and west toward Zaporizhzhia. As of Friday, fighting had reached within 10 kilometers, 6 miles of the city, according to Voloshin, as reported by state media Ukrinform. Battlefield data showed Russian troops capturing multiple kilometers east and north of Hulyapole throughout November. On Monday, Russia's Ministry of Defense claimed to have captured Zatisha, a settlement less than 4 kilometers, 2.8 miles, immediately northeast of Hulyapole, a claim disputed by Ukraine's general staff, as it said it repelled 17 Russian attacks in settlements around the city, including Zatisha, on Sunday. According to the open-source battlefield map, Deep State UA, Russia has captured multiple settlements east of Hulyapole over the course of 3 weeks. Data from Deep State UA suggests that Russia has deployed its 14th Separate Special Purpose Brigade, 218th Tank Regiment, and 394th Motorized Rifle Regiment northeast of Hulyapole. While rejecting claims that the city was being encircled on Friday, Voloshin acknowledged the situation as quite difficult in a Sunday interview with Espresso TV. In the Hulyapole sector, and in the south in general, the situation has been quite difficult for the last few days and even weeks. The enemy is increasing the number of combat engagements and the use of various types of weapons, particularly artillery, drones, and aviation, Voloshin said. The Institute for the Study of War, ISW, on Thursday, wrote that it believes Russian forces are exploiting the cover of fog that inhibits Ukrainian drone operations to launch attacks, by citing Ukrainian frontline accounts. Voloshin added on Sunday that there have been Russian infiltration attempts into the city. The situation in the Hulyapole sector is one of the most complex along the entire front line of the Russo-Ukrainian war. Russia attempted to assault our positions near the settlements of Varvarivka, Yablukove, Rivnopilya, Chervone, and Priluki. The enemy also tried to infiltrate the outskirts of Hulyapole and Varvarivka, he added. Most analysts believe Russia's strategy is to bypass Hulyapole itself. According to military analyst Denis Popovich on Kiev 24, the key sign of the recent advances is how Russian troops are bypassing major fortifications in the south, potentially opening a less resisted path towards Zaporizhzhia itself, which is the strategic target. As for fortifications, the enemy is bypassing them. This is what makes advances toward Hulyapol and Orikhiv dangerous, as well as the creation of positions for a possible future push toward Zaporizhia in a week, a month, or 2 months, Popovich said, as reported by local media TSN. Popovich said if Hulyapol is to fall, Zaporizhia and Orikhiv, another stronghold on the front, would be next. Military analyst Ivan Timochko told Espresso TV that Hulyapol is a railway hub of interest to Russia, but current movements suggest that Moscow is aiming for smaller settlements, as it lacks the strength for an offensive on places like Hulyapol. It is clear that Hulyapol is a priority for the invaders. However, we should not forget that at this stage, the Russian forces lack the strength for an offensive on such a settlement and fortified area, Timochko said. Therefore, they are currently trying to advance through small settlements and establish positions there. Nikolai Mitrokhin, a researcher at Germany's Bremen University, told Al Jazeera that Russia has been probing weak spots in Ukrainian lines and has kept pushing forward while it can. Mitrokhin asserted that current developments suggest Kyiv troops are bogged down elsewhere as Russia shifts its resources to less defended areas, meaning Russia is gaining ground while Ukraine is losing resources. He believes if Hulyapol is to fall, it would fall fast, possibly without much fighting. Militarily, there is no justification for demanding such sweeping concessions from Ukraine compared to Russia. Several thoughts from Danish military expert Anders Puck Nielsen regarding the 28-point plan. The proposed peace plan looks like a genuinely harsh ultimatum. Mr. Nielsen notes 2 factors that could influence Ukraine to sign the agreement: intelligence sharing and weapons supplies.
But what I want to say is that it's really bad. It will mean that Ukraine loses a lot of territory, it loses sovereignty, it loses security. It also throws Ukraine into a deep political crisis because it demands concessions that a majority of Ukrainians don't support, and it requires Ukraine to give up any ideas of things like justice for war crimes, for example. And most importantly, it does not provide Ukraine with any sense of security from future Russian attacks. So frankly, in Ukraine, this plan will be interpreted as Russia just getting a break for a year or two, and then they can rearm and restart the war. Everything that Russia would essentially have to do is to stage some kind of false flag attack on themselves and then claim that Ukraine did it, and this action would effectively nullify any security guarantees that Ukraine might receive from this 28-point plan, at least if Donald Trump agrees to this interpretation of this false flag attack. So it's a really bad plan for Ukraine. There isn't public support for these things in Ukraine, and it's also beyond Zelensky's powers to make decisions of this caliber on his own. And I also think it's really important to remember that militarily there is no justification for demanding such sweeping concessions from Ukraine compared to Russia. Russia's not currently winning the war. Ukraine is not exactly winning either, but when you have a situation where militarily it's very equal, then it does not make sense to demand so many more concessions from one side than the other.
Michael Clausen, Sweden's chief of defense staff, told the Financial Times that Russia was combining sabotage, special operations, even attacks against individuals, with attacks on critical infrastructure and exploiting vulnerabilities in the information environment in order to split us up and break up cohesion in our societies. The fact that we have a certain political polarization in many countries in the West is, of course, a candy shop for a hybrid warfare warrior to exploit, said Clausen. Clausen warned that NATO should also be more alive to Russia's activities in northern Africa, where he said it was controlling trafficking routes for migrants and drugs, as well as other criminal activities. This transports very quickly to the whole of Europe and NATO territory, he said.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.